Anke Pietsch, and we're doing baking with Anke here tonight. Normally this is happening at the Cancer Support Community, but because we're all at home, this is going to happen from my kitchen today. This is my daughter Mia, and she's going to help us with this. So we are baking no-knead bread today, and this is the evening, and we're starting making the dough, and then it's going to sit overnight. And then tomorrow morning we're going to do another video and I show you how to put it into the oven in the right way, and then have delicious crusty bread. So we're going to start with, we're actually making two different breads. The recipe is for one bread, but we're going to make two different kinds of the same recipe, very similar. So the first one is going to be just all white flour, and I normally use some good unbleached flour, but all purpose. And so my daughter Mia is going to make that bread with all white flour, and she's going to use 3 cups of flour.
You can use a knife to level off the flour to make sure you have enough.
I don't do that, but you know. So 3 cups of flour. And then 1.5, that's wrong. 1.25 teaspoon salt. 1.25. And then 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. So that's very little yeast, but overnight it's going to sit, and that's when something like a sourdough is going to form out of this dough. And then we use 1 5/8 cup of warm water. And because 1/5 is kind of strange, 5/8 I guess, it's kind of strange, so I normally do a 1 3/4 and a little bit less than that. So we're going to get lukewarm water here from the sink. No, that's not lukewarm. Well, here we go. Now put it on there. Right, you know where it needs to go? Okay. So basically between 1.5 cups and 1 3/4. We just pour this all in here. And then you stir it. And it's going to be kind of like a sloppy mess, and that's kind of how it's supposed to be. And my husband is actually the cameraman, and he's going to come closer in just a moment to see how this is just kind of, it's really not much of a dough. It just barely comes together. You want to mix a little bit more there, so we have it all. There you go. Okay, and we did our hands first thing.
Washed your hands.
We washed our hands first thing. Okay, this is good. I'm scraping it off.
The knife comes in handy, huh?
The knife comes in handy. So, and then this is literally just going to stay like this. I'm going to find some kind of lid, which is actually just cooking. You can also just use saran wrap, but you know, it's not good for the environment. And we just put it over here on the stove overnight. We let it sit there. You can do it if you do it in the morning and you bake it in the evening. I've done it before with like just 7 hours or something. It turns out fine too, but ideally we're talking about like 8 to 12 hours to have it sit. It can even sit longer, it still works fine. So this would be for one bread. This is the all white flour bread. It's all-purpose flour. I like to do one that's a little bit more hearty. So do you want to put it back on your stand? So I use 2 cups, 2.5 cups of white flour. So this is 2, here's a half. And then I use a 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. I don't use more than that because it gets too hearty and then I don't like it as much. So 2.5 cups of white flour, half a cup of whole wheat flour, and I often also add a little bit of ground flax seeds, and I just add, you know, I don't know, maybe a little bit less than 2 tablespoons, something like that, to just get a little bit more in there. And then I do just the same as we did with Mia's bread. I do 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt and a quarter of yeast. Here we go, all in there. And then so for this I make sure I do a cup and 3/4 of warm water, just simply because it's more hearty flour, so it might need a little bit more water. So I use lukewarm water again. Good morning, this is Anke and my daughter Mia, and we're doing baking with Anke. This is the second part of making the no-knead bread, which is like a crusty bread that's really delicious and reminds me of the bread that you get in Germany. So we made our dough yesterday. We let it sit overnight, so now it's the morning and we're gonna work with them. So if you're gonna look here, they will look really interesting, sloppy, kind of like this. That's normal, that's how it's supposed to be. I switched them around. This is the white bread, and this is the one with the whole wheat flour in it. So this is what we're gonna do. They need to basically now be shaped and sit on the counter in order to rise a little bit more. So what I do is, I'm gonna lay out 2 towels, 2 kitchen towels like this. And this one like this. We don't need the lid anymore. Here we go. And then I use a lot of flour. So in order to make this a little bit cheaper, I actually use, this is really cheap flour that I really just used to put around it, but you can use any kind of all-purpose flour. I put it on the table like this, and we just washed our hands. So I make my hands a little bit floury and pull this out. And see, this is like really sticky, but it does get off. You're gonna get some of the bubbles out. Get the whole block, put it on your flour, lots of flour, and then I'm just gonna add a little bit more on top. I'm gonna have that covered. Make sure it doesn't stick on anything. And then, like I said, it's a no-knead bread, so no kneading necessary. So all I do is I fold it a couple times over. I kind of roll it this way, keep flour on, roll it this way. Here we go. And so then I put flour on the towel, and I want to really be generous. I think I probably use a cup of flour for like a bread, just to make sure that it doesn't stick. So I take this whole thing, plop it on there, put a little bit of flour on top again so it doesn't stick, and then we let it sit there for, I want to say, at least half an hour, something like that. And then it goes in the oven, which I tell you more about the oven because it needs to be preheated, and our baking forms need to be in there before, so they can heat up too. So, but first, my daughter is gonna be doing the other bread. So, go on this side. And you wanna really get your hands in the, make sure that we have this available. So your hands need to be floury. And then you kind of grab it out of there and put it on here. Collect it all the stuff on the stuff. You want to go really all around the outside, so you get the whole glob out of there. It's sticky. Yep, take the whole thing. Okay, that's not gonna work. Yep, get it out, plop it on there. Very good. Try to get some of this off. Okay, now get more flour on it. And there we go. And then you kind of pat it. Okay, so then roll it up from one way. Yep, there we go. Turn it around and roll it the other way. Wait on. You want to roll it so you have the inside. There you go. Perfect, leave it like this. And then we need to put lots of flour on here in one location. That's good, that's good.
Spread it out. And then gently lift it on top there. Take the leftover flour, put it on top. Really spread it out so it goes all over. There we go. Ooh, honey needs to be, there we go. Just be generous on this because you don't want to have it stick. And you fold it over and then we let it sit. So I want to tell you how I bake them in the oven. So I want to say in probably like 20 minutes, I'm going to turn my oven on to 450 degrees. And the easiest way is really to set a timer because otherwise I will not remember in 20 minutes to do that. And my oven takes at least 10 minutes to heat up. So I could also do it in an hour, that's perfectly fine. It can sit a little bit longer. So you want to have the oven inside of the oven in order to get that nice crust from that bread. So what I have, and I realize not everybody has these, this is it's in German, it's called Römertopf. It's like a kind of a clay pot type thing that I would put the whole thing in the oven without anything in it, heat it up while it's heating up to 450 degrees. And once it's all hot, I pull it out, well, obviously not with my fingers, but with some pot holders, and put the bread in. So this is a good option if you happen to have one. If you have a Dutch oven, anything like that, that can stand the heat of 450 degrees in the oven. Obviously not everybody has this. So here's another option of what you could do. You use a cookie sheet, and then again put lots of flour on the bottom because we don't want it to stick. And then, well, this now it's dirty, but theoretically I could use this and then put it on top of my bread in order to create that extra oven. I could do the same thing, flour on here. It's like a pizza stone, put this over. Even like a normal cooking pot you can do as long as it can stand 450 degrees because that's pretty hot. Don't have whatever you put in there melt on you. So we're gonna let this sit. We're gonna turn the oven on to 450 degrees with my two Römertopf clay pots in there. And then we will be back in just a little bit to show you the next step. Hi, this is the third part of baking with Anke and making our crusty bread. So we have had the bread wait here for us and rice. As you can see, it got a little bit bigger. Here they are. I have my clay pots in the oven, and I explained that you can use different versions of the clay pot to make like an extra oven kind of thing inside. So what I'm going to do now is I get one of them out. I have two, obviously, because I have two breads there. Get one of them out, put it right here, put the lid away, right here. This is super hot, 450 degrees. And so I put some flour inside to make sure that it doesn't get stuck in it. And then, in order for the air to be able to escape the bread, I cut the top, and you can do that with the other bread. So I just kind of like cut a couple like cuts in there like this. Want to do a nice sharp knife. Oh, actually we did this wrong, sorry. Anyway, so what we do, we first plop it in the pot. Here we go. And then we do it on the top part. Anyway, so I do this one, wait a moment. So this is the white bread. So we cut it here. Just a couple slots like this. And I put the lid back on. And it's gonna go in the oven for 30 minutes at 450 degrees. And this is preheated. And then I take the lid off after 30 minutes and have it in there for 15 more minutes. So first 30 minutes and then without the lid for 15 minutes, and then it's all ready. So here's the other one. We put flour in it, spread it out. We can also use some of the flour from here, so you don't waste that. You're gonna plop it in. Hold it on this side shorter so you have more control, and you just flip it in there upside down. Yep, like that. Whoop, perfect. Okay. So, cut it again. On top. Wait a moment. Shake it a little bit. Stop a sec. There you go. And the other way. So the air can escape while it's rising in the oven. So I put this one back on. This is all hot because it has been preheating inside the oven with it. And so put it in. This should work just fine. 30 minutes with lid, 15 minutes without lid, and we see you back once we have it out of the oven. And my husband, who's our cameraman, is actually going to go down on the recipe here for you to see that. Like I said, 3 cups flour, 1 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon yeast, and 1 5/8 cup of warm water. That's really all. You just need a little bit of time to do that. So we'll be back. So this is the 4th video on this, and we are finally done with our bread baking. This was in the oven at 450 degrees for first 30 minutes with the lid on, and then 15 minutes without the lid, and now we're getting it out. When you open the oven, be careful. It's really hot, 450 degrees, so step back a little, get the hot air out. There's our 2 breads. Sadly, I lost my assistant. She's doing homework, so I'm doing this by myself here. There is one of them. This is the white bread. It's coming out. I'm setting it on here. See how hot it is? Putting this back over here. And then this is the one that's a little bit more hearty with some whole wheat flour in it. And it looks good too. Putting it on here. It has lots of flour around it, as you see, because we wanted to make sure it doesn't burn. And so, check this out. Can you hear the sound? It's a nice crust. And so it has a lot of flour stuck underneath. You want to scrape all that off. But then, here are our 2 breads. Like I said, they're not difficult to make. We didn't spend a long time on it actually making it. It just takes quite a while to have it sit overnight in order to get the sourdough going and put it in the oven and everything. But they're delicious. I will not cut them right now because they're just simply too hot to cut, and it's going to just mess it all up. But I think I will have a nice piece of bread with some jam and butter later. And thank you for listening and watching. And I hope to see you back soon. Bye-bye.